Thank you very much. Yes, and back to me. This is good news for me as a psychologist. So I'm very pleased to hear that my profession has a future. And I would obviously agree with that. We live in a changing world. The world is becoming more connected every day. The opportunities for contact across cultures, for trade across cultures, for learning and for research across cultures has never been greater and will continue to get greater and greater. And understanding those differences between people is something that psychologists can help with, as well as dealing with some of the problems that arise when those communications and those reaction to change causes problems as well. So yes, it's good news for me, good news for the Institute of Psychiatry as well, where I work, although not good news if we keep getting more business there. But I have a few minutes now to talk about international approaches to social and emotional learning. I want to do that in a way that will cover briefly some of the ground that we covered before, talking about the dominant approaches that there are, talking about what's been proven to be effective, and talking about perhaps what some of the challenges, the common challenges are, in terms of understanding what social and emotional learning means in different parts of the world, and what's effective in different parts of the world. Because it's certainly the case that there are many common themes in terms of child development. All children benefit from being loved, all children benefit from having carers, all children perform better when they are happy. But there are also very many differences. As someone who has lived in England, in London, most of my life, I also have a German father. That presented to me a particular challenge because the Germans are not well liked in England for some reason. I think it's to do with football. And so that presented a particular challenge for me growing up, and understanding who I was, my own identity, understanding how that affected my father. That was something that I had to work out as I was growing up, and it's something that is a great source of strength to me, as well as something which led to often to jokes and teasing from my classmates, particularly when there was a football competition on. So I think it's really important to understand that culture is something that differs between places, but actually it's something that is also active in every single one of us. And if we're talking about self-development, for me, a child's understanding of their own identity, who they are, what they want to become, that's fundamental to psychological health. So I'll be talking about a lot of this, but really I just want to give an overview, and then hopefully there'll be an opportunity with a panel discussion to answer some questions, to give a broad reflection about international approaches to social and emotional learning. And these are just a few examples to show you the number of places, we've already seen it this morning actually, the number of places in which social and emotional learning initiatives are thriving or beginning to be set up. There are some approaches which are used more widely. The Castle approach is very widely used in North America, and many aspects of that have been adopted in Europe, Australia, and also they're part of and form an element of the SANA program as well. In the UK, we had a national curriculum, SEAL, Social Emotional Learning, called SEAL, which was again distinctive. It shared many of the common theoretical themes, in that it was based on the same aspects of self-awareness, emotional competence, social literacy, and so on. But in the UK, there was a particular focus at the time when that curriculum was being developed on reducing levels of bullying at schools. And the focus of much of the material, particularly for children from 11 to 18 years of age, was very acutely focused on social relationships, on how we could promote inclusion in social groups, and by that I mean inclusion just in friendship groups, so that children didn't feel excluded, but also inclusion in terms of gender, ethnicity, and disability. So there was a great focus on that in terms of the flavour of the British social and emotional learning approach, which I'm sure differs from many of the other approaches that you can see listed here from around the world. I know a little bit about the Greenland programme because that's the one that seems most unusual, but that focused similarly on issues of inclusivity, and there are some very particular social economic problems in Greenland which overlap with problems to do with ethnicity there that they wanted to tackle in schools. So all of these have a slightly different flavour. Most of them, but not all of them, are grounded in solid and robust theory. And I think it would be fair to say that most of them are very aware of the context in which they're occurring. So they're trying to adapt a program in a practical way that can be delivered in schools to make a difference. And school systems, as well as cultures and societies, differ as well. So, I want to talk a little bit about the importance of cultural context. I'm not a CASEL expert, but we have already discussed some of this, and certainly the background to it. We've also mentioned this morning, earlier today, about intercultural competence. I think in the next 10 years, if it's not already, that's going to be something that's going to be hugely important for young people and probably for adults as well in the workplace. Because as I said at the start of this talk just now, we are living in an interconnected world. It is very rare these days that you can do business in London without having an impact or some effect on Melbourne or Kuala Lumpur. And of course there is a lot of work that is located within a country. But with the internet affecting most of our transactions, it's going to be really important to understand not only how we use those tools, but how we understand the people, or perhaps the machines, on the other end of it. So understanding intercultural differences, being sensitive to them, and giving young people the tools to find common ground across these divides is really important. And this is, again, is a reappearance of the Durlach study, but updated in 2017, where they've added further studies to it, I think. And they've, these are embarrassingly slightly different figures, but 3.5 years after the CASEL programs, a 13%, 11%, 13% increase in the academic performance of students. So, again, it is important to understand that this is a method, this is an approach. Social emotional learning is unlike many other aspects of the curriculum, like maths or physics or a language, because of course there are things to be taught, but this is a tool, this is a toolkit for allowing young people to succeed in their relationships and in terms of understanding themselves in the future. It's giving young people greater awareness of their own autonomy, perhaps also greater responsibility for taking themselves forward and for choosing their own path. But of course there are societal benefits too, as we saw before, in terms of conduct problems and in terms of other health benefits, less drug use, less emotional distress, lower levels of teenage pregnancy in the meta-analysis study as well. So huge benefits to cell approaches that extend beyond the social and emotional benefits and the academic benefits, but probably those benefits are felt differently in different cultures, because of course different societies, different groups within societies have different problems, and those are problems which teachers are on the ground able to tackle and understand in a much more effective way than any sort of broad policy can achieve. A common finding from that meta-analysis, that big study of many studies, a meta-analysis, but also of a number of programs that have been conducted. And it was there as well, a very strong feature of the UK approach, the SEAL approach, was that of course there was an explicit curriculum. Of course, it was introduced to teachers that they need to talk about self-awareness and emotional competence. But it was, what was effective in engendering change was the extent to which teachers and parents and the whole school community bought in to the idea of improving social and emotional skills. And again, it's common to many studies, but there was a very clear family seal. So social and emotional learning, which children could take home to do with their family, so that the family could start to express things better, so that the parents and the siblings would understand what it was they were doing and why it was they were doing it. And because that then means that the benefits extend beyond school to a whole of a child's life, and children need to understand that they can practice skills in one context, but if they think they only have to be empathetic at school, but they go home they can be absolutely awful, which sometimes I think my children are, but if children think that they can behave differently in these different contexts, then the benefits of this aren't always felt. So really important that as many people get involved as possible. I think it's worth also saying that the social and emotional learning curriculum goes from preschool right through to the end of school, but actually, as I said before, there are some interventions now in the workplace to try and improve social and emotional learning. At my university, I'm lead on education for all of King's, which is a big university. We have gone to great steps to start training some of these social and emotional learning skills, not in the curriculum, but alongside the curriculum. And we've done that for two reasons. Firstly, because we recognise that when our students leave King's, they are our future reputation in the world. King's is a top-ranked, top 20 QS world university, but competing with other big universities, and we want our students to graduate and do well. So we want to teach them those skills. We want to teach them how to relate to people. We want to teach them how to talk to people. We want to teach them how to manage their own career, how to identify goals and motivate themselves. And we feel we need to do that to augment the qualification they get. The other reason we're doing it is that, like most universities in the UK, our students have quite a high level of mental health problems, as well as in the school system. So roughly 50% of British university students will have, at some point in their time, a clinical level mental health problem. And rates are similar in North America, and I think in several other European countries as well. Now, this is perhaps a failing of the school system to address those social and emotional needs. Perhaps it's a feature of an academic environment that... Am I out of time nearly? 1 minute. All right, I'll stop going on about my university. We are trying to introduce that, and the last reason that we want to do it
and it chimes with something that we discussed earlier. We are very keen on promoting entrepreneurship in our students. Really important to do that. So we're trying to create healthy, happy and successful students. Just before I finish, to touch upon one final issue. There are huge differences between school children in any country. Within London, there are children at schools which are very affluent and children at schools who are at the very bottom of the European Index of Poverty. So there's a huge range there. One analysis in 2017 of the Insights program in the States found that the benefits for those students from low socioeconomic groups, those children from poorer backgrounds who perhaps don't have the family support, they improved particularly because of the benefits to classroom organisation, so their classroom environments were better. So lots to take home from international perspectives, and I really do hope we have a productive discussion. Thank you.
Рахмет.